You couldn't have scripted better conference finals for the NHL, so let's dig into it with the lead. We are absolutely not going to talk about the conference finals to start today's show. I'm just kidding. Welcome into Oilersnation Everyday, live from the Sports Closet studio. You can check them out online at sportscloset.ca or one of their 3 locations in Edmonton, St. Albert Mall, Sherwood Park Mall, or Kingsway Mall. Should have said the Edmonton area. We are live on the Oilersnation YouTube, where Viperisk is in with the first comment of the day, and he says, game day. Oh, wait. Yeah, not a game day for the Oilers. I think we're probably about 100 and some days away from our next Edmonton Oilers regular season game day. Parallax is in and says, I think what people need to keep in mind is that the Oilers went 24-6-3 since March. That doesn't seem like cause for concern heading into next season for me personally. And yeah, I think that's actually pretty fair. I think, when a team loses in tough fashion the way they did, the way the Oilers got eliminated, I think you're probably going to get a lot of people who want them to overreact and want them to blow up this team. And the reality is, if you're holding your breath waiting for seismic changes to this Oilers roster this summer, I mean, you're going to be holding your breath for 100 and some days until the next regular season. Like, it's not going to happen. I think if you're in the chat hoping that, there's going to be a major $6 million plus piece added, if you're waiting for Erik Karlsson or some impact top 6 winger, Timo Meier, someone like that, I think you're going to be disappointed. I think there's going to be a couple of fringe moves made. I think they're going to give this group and the supporting cast. When I say supporting cast, I'm not talking about the Nuges, the Hymans, the Canes, and, the Ekholms, Nurses, whatever. I'm talking about that next layer down. I think we're going to see changes to that group there, and probably not a whole heck of a lot else. We'll talk today about the free agent market and things like that. There was a great piece up at dailyfaceoff.com from Frank Saravalli talking about, the free agent market and what people should kind of expect. But first, I want to bring in my pal Liam Horrobin, who yesterday went toe-to-toe with Matt Wozniak in their men's league soccer, and you came out on the wrong end of it, Liam. Sorry to hear.
Yeah, came out on the wrong side of it, but shout out to Waz for giving us a penalty in the game. That was very nice of you to do that for us. Next time, I think we'll have that number. Now, the first game's always a tester, Tyler. The second game is when it really, really matters.
Yeah, I heard Waz made the most of his 3 minutes on the field, so big shout out to our boy Waz for really contributing in that head-to-head matchup. All jokes, though. Over in the chat, Kurtiman is in and says, go get Carson Soucy. Hey, we'll talk about that a little bit here. People want me to join the Discord. I don't understand how that app works. Brian Wood says, Connor Brown and Scott Mayfield need to be Oilers after July 1st. Pradneski still upset about the season ending, he says. So basically, if the Oils showed up against Vegas, we'd be playing Bobrovsky in the finals. Why? Yeah, I mean, Liam, we hit on that, not to dig too deep into the past and being eliminated, but in the moment, we were well aware. The West was wide open, and then you saw Boston, Tampa, Toronto get knocked off, and then it was like, holy shit, the whole league was wide open there.
Yeah, the West was kind of fell apart early, didn't it? And it seemed like the Oilers really had an opportunity to go and do something special, but evidently Vegas is showing how good of a hockey team they actually are right now, up 3-0 on the Dallas Stars. And I thought the series would be a lot closer, but Dallas really hasn't shown up. You need your goalie to be your best player some nights, and Jake Ottinger got pulled last night, right? And I think that's kind of a similar situation to what the Oilers ran into, is the goaltender wasn't good enough when they really, really needed him to be. And obviously the Jamie Benn 5-minute major wasn't ideal for them either. But yeah, I think it is a bit of a missed opportunity for the Oilers, because now you look at Vegas up 3-0. It could be in their spot, but it could be 2 years in a row the Oilers get eliminated by the future Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, that's actually a great point as well. I'll get your thoughts on Jamie Benn in a second, but first, for anyone who watched Stuart Skinner in the playoffs and had any sort of concern about his ability to be this franchise's goalie of the future and starting goalie next year, look no further than Jake Ottinger. And that's a guy who had playoff experience coming into this year and has still struggled in this playoff run. Stuart Skinner is absolutely going to be fine. The playoffs are very difficult. The playoffs are very difficult on young goalies, and the struggles we're seeing with Ottinger, kind of similar. I mean, Skinner, you could argue, is actually not quite this bad either. So that's interesting. Jamie Benn said today in speaking to the media says he wished he wouldn't have fallen on stone and used his stick as a landing point. That's interesting because you just cross-checked him in the face, dude. Don't try to play it off as some kind of an accident. I think they give him 2 games. Also, this gem of a tweet from Frank, absolutely hilarious. Liam, how many games do you think they give Jamie Benn?
I'll be honest, I didn't think they were going to give him any games. I thought the way the penalty was in the first 2 minutes of the game was kind of like, hey, that's your game punishment in a way. And not because I don't think he deserves getting suspended. I just think the NHL Department of Player Safety is an absolute joke. I think he'll get 1 game now that he actually has a hearing, because Alex Pietrangelo, to me, they're both in there as intent to hurt. I think in the moment, Jamie Benn, you kind of have that moment of okay, I'm doing this, I guess, where Pietrangelo was a well thought out process and he still only got 1 game. So I think he'll get 1, but I am genuinely surprised he is getting a hearing. I thought his game suspension was essentially last game when they got absolutely thumped by it too.
So I'll meet you in the middle and I'll say he gets 1 game. I think in a 3-0 series, you can very easily take that guy out of game 4. It's fine. It'd be understood. That's intent to injure. That's on a star player. I think you can give him a game there, no problem. Dr. Gonzo calls Ben an absolute disgrace. Odin says it would be hideous to hear that Eichel won a cup first. Listen, Liam, we're firmly rooting for Florida, right? Even though Matt Tkachuk's on that side of the matchup, if it's a Florida-Vegas final, we want the Cats to win.
Yeah, we are all in on the Florida Panthers in this podcast, I think, Tyler. I hope Vegas never win a game again in their entire history. So, yeah, I'm all in on Florida. I could care less if Matthew Tkachuk's on the team, honestly. Matthew Tkachuk has nothing to do with me anymore. Carolina can't win it because, obviously, 06. Dallas, I know there's some demons here. And also, Vegas being Vegas. How about the guy who threw popcorn on Aiden Hill yesterday?
And then the Stars after. And the Stars released a statement apologizing. Yeah, Aiden Hill said everything was hitting me tonight. I like that. All right, yeah, so 3-0 in both conference finals. Let's talk some Edmonton Oilers, though, and get to our Sherwood Forward giant offseason question for the day, and it's this, Liam. We've been talking a little bit of free agency. Last week, Frank Saravalli had his top 10, and we talked about if there were maybe some potential fits in that top 10 for the Oilers. The way I come out on that top 10, and we can flash up the first 5 here, Aaron, as well as their projected contracts. Frank partnered up with AFP Analytics to give a projected contract for every free agent on his list. I don't think any of these guys are fits. Damon Severson's too expensive. I like Bertuzzi. I like Orlov. Too expensive. I don't like Comfer. I don't like Bunting at north of $5 million. I don't see any fits here. Numbers 6 through 10. Graves shoots left, and he's expensive. Killorn is old. You don't want to touch that. Patrick Kane, I think he's going to go to Buffalo, also pretty expensive. Ryan O'Reilly, probably going Toronto or St. Louis. I don't see him as a fit here. Gavrikov, shoots left, not a fit here. I don't see a fit in the top 10, Liam, correct?
No, I think everyone's out of the price range for the Oilers, unfortunately. I don't think there'll be many huge names coming through the door this summer.
Yeah. So that brings us to kind of the next tier, and bear with us if you're watching on the stream. We'll get your thoughts on some players kind of as we go through the list, but I want to work my way through the next 40 with you here today on the show, Liam, because it's the offseason, and this is what we do. Tristan Jarry being projected at 4 by 4.8. My initial reaction is, why couldn't he have been a free agent last year? That guy instead of Jack Campbell probably would have been preferred, man. History here. He loves Edmonton, even though he only spent his junior days here. He still comes back a lot. He would have been an awesome fit, but the Oilers are locked in with their goalies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of saw that name too, and I was like, damn, if that was 1 year sooner, that would have been a nice one. Like you said, the Oil Kings connection there. The trouble with him is health, right? He seems to be injured fairly often, but when he's on his game, he's a fantastic goaltender, and the tandem between him and Stuart Skinner would be just delightful. But we probably won't get
Jordan Stahl probably stays in Carolina. Vlad Tarasenko, don't see him as a great fit here just because I think he's hungry to stay in a big American market. Max Pacioretty, 1 year, 1.5, man. You bonus that guy up. Some team's going to get a potential 35 to 40 goal guy in Pacioretty for dirt cheap next season. I don't think it'll be Edmonton. He's American born. I know he's had the experience with Montreal playing in Canada. I just see this guy doing like the LA, Tampa, maybe back to Carolina thing. I really don't think Pacioretty's coming north.
No, as much as I would like that too, I can't see it at all. Like he's been down there in Vegas and Carolina now. Like it just doesn't feel like a fit, unfortunately.
Yeah, Max Domi, I know that's your boy, Liam. I love the style of player.
Mm-hmm.
I think some team is going to regret paying him close to $5 million and $25 million total over the course of that contract. He's a third liner. He's not worth that kind of money.
Yeah, I think that team's going to be the Chicago Blackhawks. Honestly, I know he's made it very obvious that he enjoyed playing with Luke Richardson there. So I think he'll just go back. And again, we said it yesterday, Chicago needs NHL players.
Yeah, Les is in and says, I wouldn't mind Domi in the bottom 6, put him on the right side to replace Yamo in the top 6. I'm not paying Domi that kind of money. I'm sorry. There are better options out there who can be more impactful for the Oilers. Also, he's a center or a left wing. Putting him on his off wing and committing that kind of money just feels like a bit of a mistake here. Let's go to the next 5 names on Frank Seravalli's list. Barbashev, 4x4.2, left winger, not a fit. Scott Mayfield's the one, though, Liam. I mean, there's 2 here that are going to be our big targets. If you can free up money by moving Yamo and Ceci, that's $6.3 million. If the duo of Mayfield and Connor Brown costs you $7 million, you've spent $900,000 more, and I think your team is much, 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 much better. Those 2 are the fits. Those are, if I'm given my dream targets, you could put a little thing at the top. Yaremchuk's dream free agent targets. The list goes Mayfield, Connor Brown.
Yeah, they both make the team better in many ways. And yeah, for Connor Brown, I'd like to see the number go down a little bit, but also I think that's still reasonable value considering you're paying Yamamoto only $200,000 less, right? So you get a little bit more out of Connor Brown. What do you think of Dadonov, Tyler? Like at that value for 1 year, like maybe he's like a good stopgap player until maybe more money gets freed up and the cap goes up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard he's kind of been impressing people outside. He's with the Stars right now, not the Golden Knights. He's been impressing people during the Stars playoff run here. He's got 4 goals in 16 games. This season, he scored 7 goals in 73 games. He's a player who's just an absolute roller coaster. If he's $1.5 million, I don't dislike it. But here's what I'll say. If the Oilers go, like, Dadonov can't be the Yamo replacement. And I don't like Dadonov as a Janmark replacement. I think you want to get someone who's good on the penalty kill, solid defensively. I think some team will like the chance they take on Dadonov. I just don't know if the Oilers are a fit because he seems a little bit too one-dimensional for what they need in the bottom 6.
Yeah, I think the Janmark is kind of like someone like Janmark is someone they want to find in the bottom 6 again this year. Someone on that low-end contract maybe slips through the gaps a little bit. Pick him up later in the free agency period, and I don't know. I can see Dadonov, somebody in the U.S., maybe Southern U.S., picking him up again.
Connor Brown, 4 years by $3.3 million. We got a comment in the chat here from Dr. Gonzo who says, "Isn't Brown a Band-Aid?" Okay, so he blew out his knee in the 4th game of this season. Not ideal. I don't know if that's necessarily an injury that's going to linger all too much, though. He'll have basically a full year to recover from it. That doesn't worry me. Before this past season, last year with Ottawa, he did get banged up a little bit, only played 64 games. Year before that, he played all 56 games before the season got canceled. Year before that, all 71. Year before that, 56 games was the shortened year. So he played every game that year. Year before that, he played all 71 before the season got canceled. 3 years before that, 82, 82, 82. He was actually very good at staying healthy earlier in his career. He's 29 years old now, so maybe there's a bit of concern, but I don't think his injury or his health history is like a major red flag or a reason why you don't sign the guy. I think the projected contract at $3.3 million over 4 years, it's a little rich for my liking. I would do 3x3. I would do 3x3.2, 3.3. Sure, that 4th year seems like a bit much considering he's 29, but also maybe you can convince him to take the 1-year deal. Say, hey, we're going to give you 1 year at $2.5 million. We'll bonus it up. If you score 25 goals, you're going to make 4. And then we'll let you hit the open market and get 4x4.5 next year. Get even more money on top of what we paid you for the 1 year. 1 season, rebuild your value next to Connor McDavid, who you played with in junior. I wonder if maybe the Oilers could convince him to take a 1-year reset your value type thing. And there are wingers above him on this list in the market that other contenders will likely go after first. I think teams will look at a Max Pacioretty type if they want to go on the rebound from an injury type angle. I think maybe there's a chance the Oilers could convince him to take a lesser deal.
I get a feeling that our Connor might have been on the phone to Mr. Brown already and had a conversation about what's going to happen on July 1st. The Oilers were interested last summer too, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think committing 4 years to him is a lot. Someone else put in the chat, Adarat said, you need Brown on a short-term contract. I don't know if the Oilers are in a position to give him term with Lavoie and Bourgault making their way up the system. I think that's a great point, too. I think 3 years is the most I'd be willing to go with Connor Brown. So if there was a bidding war, if he says, hey, I'm not taking the 1 or 2 year deal, I'd go 3 by 3.3 is kind of my max offer for Connor Brown. And if he doesn't take that, I think I might look elsewhere.
The Christopher Palmer asked in the chat, do you think McDavid and Draisaitl will get a voice in recruiting? Hasn't Ken Holland come out and basically said like he talks to his players about where the team needs to fill holes and guys like that? So it's 100% that happens.
Yeah, I know they were kind of consulted ahead of the trade deadline too about a couple of moves. So yeah, they definitely have a say in what the Oilers are going to do in their exit interviews. I'm sure there's chats during the summer about like potential fits and things like that. Ken Holland would 100% be talking to those guys. Freddie Anderson, no, that's the rest of this list of 5. Connor Brown and Scott Mayfield headline the list. Dream right winger, dream right defenseman for me when we're looking at free agent options. Here's the thing though, Liam. I don't know if the Oilers are going to be able to fill both those spots in free agency. I think there might be a little bit of like, you might need to trade Yamamoto in a deal to get a right D. We talked about DeMello. Or maybe you need to move CC to a team who has an extra middle 6 forward, is looking to shed cap, and wants a D-man. I actually think it might be tough to just straight up cap dump both CC and Yamamoto.
Yeah, I was kind of playing around this morning on Cap Friendly, the GM thing you can do there, and trying to put together a roster. And yeah, it was difficult to try and stay under the cap. Obviously, that's not including the potential of the cap going up this summer. But yeah, you might have to maybe even keep one of those 2 guys just until the deadline and figure it out from there as the season goes on. Like your roster doesn't have to be perfect on opening night; it just has to be perfect on the trade after the trade deadline, right? That's kind of when you need to know you've got your strongest team available to you, at least obviously avoiding injuries. So, yeah, I think out of those 2, like I think I would rather move a Yamamoto and try and strengthen the defense than lose a Cody Ceci to strengthen the forward group.
Yep. Let's go to the next kind of rung of players here. Carson Soucy at the top. He is a left D, but he can play the right side. And that projected contract, Liam, sounds very good to me. Basically, the Brett Kulak deal for $250K less and a year less as well. If I would go 3, I would almost go 3 by 3 for a guy like Carson Soucy. Again, not an ideal fit because he is a left shot, but he is good enough playing the right side. He's strong enough on that end of things. Alberta boy, tall, physical, rugged D-man. 3 by 2.5, sign me up for Carson Soucy.
Yeah, that'd be a decent one for me too, especially on that, he can play both sides. I think if the Oilers, you'd need that flexibility, right? They tried to do it with Brett Kulak a little bit this season too, and he did well, but I think Jay Woodcroft has proven throughout the year he likes to have the flexibility with just a 7 defenseman, obviously. So Soucy would be in my range too. I'm not sure of how much though. Maybe around what it is there.
Okay. Brett Kulak has 3 years left at 2.75. If for whatever reason there was a team out there who loved Brett Kulak and they're willing to give you a 2nd rounder in this year's draft for him, I know Aaron's pissed, but like, it's a question. I'm not saying I'd do it. Are you a better or a worse team if you sign Soucy to this deal and trade Kulak for a 2nd rounder? Soucy in a 2nd or Kulak? It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting thought process.
I don't know. I guess stick with what you know. I think you probably are better with Brett Kulak, to be honest. I think he has a bit more offensive upside, which obviously his team wants to play high offense hockey every minute of the game. So, yeah, I think you would keep a Kulak. However, like I don't think it would be like a massive downgrade if you did that, and it would definitely bring more defense to the team, I guess you could say. Not that Kulak doesn't, but Susie would be a more defense-focused type player.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Susie is a full-on CC replacement, just because,
Mm.
again, you want to flip that guy to the right side and play him against the other team's best. I'd be hesitant to do that, but he'd be an interesting complementary piece on this blue line. Radko Gudas being projected to make more than $3 million at 32 years old, I think is a mistake. I think if his foot speed takes even the slightest step back, you're going to see that guy really, really struggle. He doesn't face high-quality competition all that often. I don't see Radko Gudas as a good fit. People have wondered about Eric Halla. I don't see Eric Halla as a very good fit. He shoots left, plays center, left wing. You need right wingers. He played with a lot of skill this year and only scored 17 goals. Like, that's good, but I'm not giving that guy $3.5 million on a 3-year deal. I go after Connor Brown. I don't go after Eric Halla. Matt Dumba at a projected $4.4 million. I'm not overly interested in that. I think that's just a bit too rich for my liking. He's chaotic. I don't think he's a guy who calms down a Darnell Nurse pairing. Aiden Hill, Oilers aren't in the market for goaltending. Do you disagree with me on the Gudas, Halla, Dumba takes?
No, I definitely don't. And I think just to, I guess, dress Eric Haller, I've seen his name out there a little bit too. Like, don't you just want Ryan McLeod to play your third line center role? And if he's not playing third line center, let him play left wing. You're also paying him $2 million less, more than likely, than what you would pay in Eric Haller. So I'd be out on that guy. Gudas, I feel like he's just going to be the one guy this free agency class that gets overpaid, to be honest, and someone regrets it in a year. Dumba, a little bit too chaotic, and apparently Aiden Hill is one of the best goalies in the NHL right now. So I mean, 3.3 million for that guy. Someone's getting a steal, but yeah, I don't think it'll be the Oilers by any means.
Yeah, our pal Adarath put in there. Is he adding millions to his contract with his current play in the conference finals? Probably. Someone's going to take a shot at that guy just because of how good he's playing. Is where we're at on Frank Saravalli's top 50s. We're grinding away here, chilling away at this list. Jonas Korpisalo, K. Semyon Varlamov, another goalie. Alex Kerfoot, I think $3.5 million is too much for that guy. Gostisbehere is a left D. Luke Shen on a bargain bin contract would be really intriguing to me, but I feel like he's only signing a bargain contract in Toronto. I think if he's going to go anywhere else, there might be a bit of a bidding war, and he probably goes above 1 year 1.6. I wouldn't hate him at like 1 year by $2 million, but again, is he a full-on Susie replacement? No. To me, you sign Luke Shen if you don't want Vinny Desharnais being an everyday piece next year, and I don't think the Oilers are there. I think they got to aim higher than a Liam.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of those. Obviously, no goalies. Kerfoot probably a little bit too much, and the other's left side is pretty busy already. You may as well just keep paying Warren Fogle. The Ghost, no need for him here, and then Luke Shen, yeah, like he'd be the only one. But you're right, like unless the others don't have belief in Vinny Desharnais, which to me they've shown no sign of that occurring, then there's no need to bring in a Luke Shen right now. Maybe at the deadline if he goes to a shit team.
Yeah, but I think he's going to sign in Toronto. Listen, like this is almost the same thing with Carson Soucy. If you want to bring him in and play him on the right side, I think it's got to be in that Vinny spot. And maybe this is a scenario where, again, we got to talk about Broberg, right? If you want, I don't think they're going to move Desharnais. $750K, dirt cheap. They loved him this year. But, like, let's say you do bring in Soucy for 2.5, and you say, hey, we're going to play you on the right side, and we're not going to upgrade Cody Ceci this offseason. We're going to keep him and maybe do something at the deadline. And your pairings next year are Nurse and Ceci again, which, again, is a mistake on the year as a whole, but they're good enough to get you to the deadline. Nurse and Ceci, Ekholm, Bouchard, and then you're running Kulak and Soucy to maybe take some tough minutes away from Nurse and Ceci and allow them to thrive a little bit. That's your 6. Vinny's your 7. What does a package of Broberg and Yamamoto get you from a rebuilding team? It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good little chunk, I would imagine. You'd definitely get a big upgrade in the top 6. It would just be about what can you afford at that point to bring in financially. But yeah, I mean, 2 players under the age of 20, 2 former first-round picks. Broberg, obviously, we don't really fully know what he's going to be yet, but you've definitely upgraded on your blue line. And I think you're right. Like, I don't think it's always necessarily like you got to move out CC because of this. It's like maybe you do just need to bring somebody in behind him to support him a little bit better and put him in better situations. And we saw it in year 1. CC can be a good defenseman. There was rumors that he had injuries a lot this year, but the end of the day, he wasn't good enough when the boys needed him. But yeah, if you bring in a Susie and Kulak as your third pairing, then that's a really good shutdown pairing, I would think, at the trade
Yeah.
deadline.
Yeah, man. Like I'm kind of with you on that. And I mean, you probably could keep Vinny and Broberg as your 7 and 8 defenseman next year, but and I really want to see out the how Broberg plays out. Like I think that's a guy, again, a top 10 pick. If he figures it out, he's so young. He's 21. Like he's been around the team, been in North America for a few years, so he's lost his shine a little bit. I don't want to give up on him yet. But I'm just saying, if you truly are pushing your chips in the middle, all of them for next year, if you're Ken Holland, last year your contract is GM, if he is indeed still the GM, I mean, maybe it's time to do that. Does he still have value? You need to make a read on this guy at some point. Either you need to commit to him being your number 7 next year and playing a lot, maybe taking minutes from Broberg, but I don't know. I'm torn on this whole Broberg thing. If you need to go all in on it, or if you need to not go all in, if you need to make that move this year, I just don't see how you're going to give him full-time minutes. I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for Broberg right now, and I'm kind of with you. Like, I would love to have him here. I think he's going to be a good defenseman one day, but how much longer do the Oilers have is really a tale of two sides. Like financially, it makes sense to keep him. There's not really any reason to move him overall, but like if you can get something better and try and win now, then you gotta at least look at the idea and see what the market has to offer, right? So it's gonna be. I think this might be the last straw for Broberg. We'll kind of see what he has, but I don't see a decision being made anytime soon, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Like your left side is just locked in for the next few years with Ekholm, Nurse, and Kulak all under contract for 3 more seasons. So if you're gonna move Broberg, this is the summer to do it. Don't do it
Mhm.
after another year of playing him 20 games at the NHL level, you healthy scratching him a bunch, using him as a 7D. Like this is the summer where you either need to commit to him being an everyday part of your top 6 or you need to move on from him. So we'll see. We will see. Let's continue along with going through the top 50 that Frank has up on Daily Faceoff. There's a couple of interesting ones in here. Garnet Hathaway, I really like. 4x2 mil. He's a good energy bottom 6 piece. I like that fit. He's not a guy with top 6 potential, and that's where the Oilers need to be prioritizing right now. I think you can bring back a
Mhm.
Costin. I think, if you lose both Bjugstad and Janmark, then maybe you have the money to spend 2 mil on a Garnet Hathaway. Sure. I think he could help. He's interesting. I actually just think the Oilers, I think he gets more than this, is my point. I think he could get like 3x3 or maybe like 4x2.5. And I think at that point, it's a bit too rich.
Yeah, I mean, if you had the option to bring back Derek Ryan, I'll go with the Gardner Hathaway. Who would you go with? Hathaway?
Well, like Hathaway's a better player, but Derek Ryan's going to be less than half the price.
True.
The rest here, whatever GM gives Jason Zucker $5.4 million on a 5-year deal should be fired immediately. The GM that gives John Klingberg anything close to $5 million should also be fired immediately. James Van Riemsdyk, 1 year by 1.8. I don't understand. I feel like this is a borderline typo. Like, that guy should be making more money.
Yeah, I mean, if JVR is available for that much, the Oilers should probably take a swing at him. I guess right winger, who's known to score in the NHL. It's been a weird little couple of months for JVR after getting traded and not traded. So I mean, hey, if the summer comes around, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a typo on his contract and he made like $5 million less than he should.
Like, I have a funny feeling he ends up back in New Jersey, or he ends up in New Jersey. That's where he's from ultimately. That would make sense to me. They're looking for some talent with Heeshire and Hughes. They might lose Eric Holla. Maybe they get Van Riemsdyk for dirt cheap. I think I would almost be willing to go 3x3 with JVR. Again,
Mm-hmm.
he's older. Like, what's it? He's 34. 3x3, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do 3x3. I would do a 2-year deal for JVR, though. Let me give you his goal totals the last few years. 12 goals in 61 games last year. Coming off a down year. No one's saying he's not. Year before that, 24 and 82, 17 and 56, 19 and 66. Then before that, 27 and 66. He's been really productive the 4 years before this one. I don't buy that his game has fallen off that big of a cliff. I think JVR could be a really interesting ad for this Oilers team.
I'm with you. I think if JVR kind of starts falling deeper into the free agency period and he's cheaper option for the team, then why wouldn't you take the shot at that guy who has proven he can score in the NHL on
Yeah.
numerous occasions? So it's kind of what the Oilers need in that top six. I think just another player who can find the back of the net, which they were kind of missing on the right wing with Yamo this year.
You give JVR 2x2.5, you move Yamo, you've saved $1 million, and you've gotten a consistent 20 goal guy to plop into your top six. I think that could be a slam dunk kind of move. I'm just worried if he'd sign here is kind of my thing. I think if he's taking a low cost deal to be on a contender, he will probably do it with an American team considering he's American. Let's keep moving along here. Get to 36 through 40 on Frank Saravalli's top free agent list. Pierre Engvall potentially getting $4 million. If some team signs him to 4x4, I would bet a lot of money he's bought out by the end of that. David Kampf is interesting to me, Liam. I think if Nick Bjugstad prices him out of the Oilers market, if he gets like 2x2.25 somewhere, and you could get Kampf for like 2x1.75, I think that's an interesting 4C for this club.
Yeah, and I mean, he plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and apparently all the free agents just come to Edmonton, so that one adds up for me too. But yeah, he's a solid little role player. You could play in your third, fourth line, whatever it may be, and contributes very regularly too for what you need him to be. So yeah, I would like that too if Nick Bjugstad kind of budgets himself out, like you said.
Connor Clifton, probably not a fit here, but I like some team to take a gamble if that's his expected contract. Evan Rodriguez, I'm good. Thomas Tatar, I'm definitely good at that price. 40 through 45 now as we continue to rattle our way through these top 50 free agents. Who do we got, Aaron? There you go. Ian Cole, lefty, not a fit. Nick Foligno can't really skate anymore. Jesper Fast, an interesting buy low candidate, had a pretty good playoffs for that Canes team. 2x2.3 is a very stomachable contract. I'd be intrigued by him. I just wonder what his high end is. You know, like what's the most you're going to get out of Jesper Fast in an NHL season? If he plays all 82 in the Oilers' top six, can he score you 20 goals? He's never scored 20 goals in his career. So at 31 years old, I think if you're expecting him to be like a much better Kyler Yamamoto, I think you might be disappointed. I think he's an interesting plan D, but he's far from the top of my list.
Is he a penalty killer? Am I thinking that correctly?
I think so, yeah.
Is he your Matthias Janmark? Guy that kind of slips through, maybe you get for $1.5 million towards a little later on. Like I wouldn't hate him to be my third line right winger, you know, like might be a decent one.
That's interesting. I think he's too expensive. I don't think I think that comparison is lost in the cap hits. If you had to choose between Jesper Fast or Nick Bjugstad, who would you pick though? If you could afford one of those guys.
Do you know what? I might go Fast because of the lack of depth the others have on the right side. You can make up on the first centerman, like Dylan Holloway could really be your fourth line center this year if you really wanted him to be. I know you likely don't want that, but if you can adjust a Fast on the third line wing and maybe you get a Kemp, for example, who can also play the center, I think that might be more worth it than signing Nick Bjugstad.
Kemp and Fast, if they come for a combined 4 million or 3.5,
3.5.
That would be interesting in the bottom six if you can make the money work. But then I still think you would need to at some point upgrade on Kyler Yamamoto. So again, like it's tough to do that. Eric Gustafson, that seems like a lot of money. Oilers don't need a left D whose main thing is offense. And the final five names on our list: Justin Hall, Sean Monahan, Jonathan Drouin, Teddy Bluger, maybe an interesting 4C option for this Oilers team, and Corey Perry. Justin Hall, that feels like an overpay. Jonathan Drouin is not a good hockey player. Corey Perry probably stays in Tampa. Sean Monahan, Liam. Sean Monahan.
Yeah, I kind of thought that one too.
The idea of putting him on a line with like a Dylan Holloway to build up like a bottom six that can just score a lot is interesting. When he's on, he's actually pretty good. He had a nice little bounce back for a bit in Montreal. I wonder if he can be the player you need him to be, though. Like, how reliable could he be on the PK, winning draws and things like that? I don't know enough about how he played in Montreal to answer that fully. But just seeing the name pop up at a 1-year cheap deal, I'm kind of like, damn, I'm somewhat intrigued.
You know, when I was looking through Frank's list as well, that was a name that kind of popped into my head. I was like, maybe it wouldn't be too bad. He did have a pretty good time in Montreal until he got injured, of course, and didn't play. But if you can get him on a pretty good deal and he's one of your bottom pairing centermen, like
Yeah.
worst case scenario, like someone gets hurt, at least he has the experience of being a top six player too. I don't think he can produce at that rate anymore, but he's been there and done it. I wouldn't mind it too, and especially if he comes out here and does really well, and you can stick it to Calgary a little bit as well. I think that'd be
Yep.
quite nice. But yeah, I think out of that group, like that'd be a guy I'd be intrigued about. I wouldn't be intrigued about Justin Hall at all. Jonathan
No.
Drouin obviously gone through a lot off the ice as well. I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to put yourself in that situation. Teddy Beluga for the value, not bad. He was Vegas's 13th forward, and then Corey Perry, I wouldn't mind him here honestly. Like
It's just not
he's
gonna
kind of a
sign here.
legend to the game, but I just don't think he's gonna come here at all.
Yeah. All right, there you go. There are some other names not on Frank's list that I want to bring up, but we're going to save that for tomorrow, and we're going to move along. That was our Short for Giant off-season question of the day. Which players are the Oilers most likely to target in free agency? Let's get to our player grade for today, Liam. Also, yesterday was Ekholm, and today was his birthday, so happy birthday to
Yes.
Matthias Ekholm. But our player grade today, brought to you by Star Mechanical. Find them online at starmechanical.ca, is number 18, Zach Hyman. I honestly kind of forgot that this guy only almost popped home 40 goals in the regular season, Liam. 36 goals, 47 assists, cracked the 80-point mark for the first time in his career. That gets him a regular season grade of an A for me. If he would have hit 40 goals and hit 90 points, I probably would have gone A+, but I give Zach Hyman an even A. I think the reason I forgot that he scored 36 goals in the regular season, though, is because he was kind of a non-factor in the playoffs. Scored a goal off his face. That was good. But Zach Hyman was not the same Zach Hyman we got in last year's playoff run. And if he was, the Oilers maybe play a little bit longer. If guys like him and Kane would have shown up more consistently, the Oilers might have beaten the Vegas Golden Knights, and I don't think that's an unfair amount of criticism to put on him. He gets an A in the regular season. He gets a C in the playoffs for me because that's when this guy is supposed to be at his best, and he flat out got worse over the playoff run. Great guy. Love Hyman as an Oiler. 100% chance he's back next year. 100% chance I want that guy back next year. The free agent signings worked out perfectly. He seems like a consistent 30-goal guy for this hockey club at this point if he plays all 82 games or close to it. But that playoff grade's got to be tough for me because he was that disappointing, Liam.
Yeah, and I think too with the 36 goals, let's not forget he had 7 called back this season as well. So, yeah, the A I think in the regular season is fair. I think he beat expectations by a little bit too
Yep.
for what you expect from him. So A is good, and I might give him a C plus because when he did show up for the team in the first round, it was kind of in big moments. Like he had that 2-point game. I think he had another couple of multi-point games, but I think you're right in saying if he had showed up a little bit more against Vegas, then maybe the Oilers would still be playing right now, right? So I think that's fair, and obviously 100% chance of returning. But yes, next playoff run, we need more from Zach Hyman, and if we get it, this team will go on a longer run.
Your grades in the Oilers Nation YouTube chat are kind of all over the place. Some of you, like Les and Adarath, are at a B-. Some of you C+. Brenton with a D for the playoffs. So it's a little bit split. Someone said, he scored it was Ivan. He scored an OT goal. Give him some credit. I'm giving him credit for that.
That's
He had a
true.
couple of big games, but you need more than just a couple of games where you show up. And there was just too many nights where he was a non-factor in the playoffs, which is why I'm grading Zach Hyman a little bit tougher here than maybe I would have liked to. Aaron's saying he's given him a C- for his performance in the playoffs. Odin says C+ because of that OT goal. It relieved some stress for a few days. That was a great moment. Comeback win in LA. Hyman finishes it off in OT. I loved it. But again, the playoffs as a whole, we're not grading him on one moment. We're grading him on how he played over the course of the 12 playoff games that we got here in Edmonton. So disappointing from Zach Hyman, but all the confidence in the world that next playoff run, we'll be grading Zach Hyman a little bit better here. So there you go. There's our player grade for today, brought to you by Star Mechanical. And now we get to what is quickly becoming everyone's favorite part of the show, Liam. It's the trade machine for AMA Travel. Head to amatravel.ca/dreams to find out how they can help you create the ultimate vacation this summer. I got a deal between Montreal and Winnipeg, Liam, and it involves Pierre-Luc Dubois. The worst kept secret in all of hockey, I mean, it's hardly even a secret. Dubois more or less comes out and says it. He wants to play in Montreal. He doesn't want to sign long-term in Winnipeg. He basically only wants to be a Hab. So I think this summer they finally find a way to make that happen, and they send him to Winnipeg for the first-round pick, which will be Florida's. Remember, Montreal acquired that pick in the Ben Sherratt deal last year. And there was a while where we thought that was going to be a lottery pick. Now it's likely going to be pick, 28 or something like that. So I think that's fair. You add in Jordan Harris as a young defenseman. I think Winnipeg could want to add a nice young defenseman to that blue line and maybe freshen things up back there. Harris could slot in behind Josh Morrissey, really grow into a nice top 4 role. And then it could give Winnipeg the flexibility to maybe move a veteran defenseman like a Dylan DeMello. Maybe this works out for Edmonton. But Jordan Harris, I think he's the expendable piece on that Montreal blue line. You look, they have Caden Gooley, they have Justin Barron. They have a couple of good youngsters coming up on that blue line. They can afford to sacrifice a piece like Jordan Harris. They have their pick in the top 5 this year from their own tanking or whatever you want to call it, so they can afford to move this first rounder. If you're Winnipeg, you probably can't hold out for a ton of value in a trade, even though Dubois is a really good young player. Probably can't hold out for a lot of value because everyone knows he only wants to play in Montreal. The question is, Liam, who says no? Dubois for a first and Jordan Harris.
I think this is such an interesting one because, like you said, like Winnipeg is kind of handcuffed in this deal a little bit. If Dubois isn't going to sign, they can obviously hold it out a little bit longer, I guess, until they get more value. But to get a first-round pick and a good defenseman who has, I believe he has 2 years of NHL experience now, at least one full season under his belt with, I think he had around 26, 28 points, something like that. Like, it's a pretty good deal. So I wouldn't, maybe Montreal would be the ones who say, no, we're not giving you as much because they know Dubois wants to play there. So maybe the ball's in their court a little bit. But I do think this is a reasonably fair deal for essentially a second-round pick in a way, I guess you could say, and a good defenseman in Jordan Harris. And then Montreal, on the flip side, they want to start moving in a positive direction eventually. And if you can bring a Quebec player back to Montreal, I think they'll snap their hands off of that any day. So I think this is reasonably fair.
Yeah, and then I think about like that top 6 for Montreal. Like, again, you're sacrificing a bit here. It is still technically a first. Jordan Harris is a good young player, but the idea of having a bottom 6 that's like Suzuki, Dubois, Slavkovsky, it's like, man, all of a sudden you're building out a team that is like really, really solid here. I forgot about Cole Caulfield as well in that mix, and also young D-man, they got Arbor Xhekaj. They have a lot of really good young pieces. Adding a guy like Dubois who's ready to go right now and can give those young pieces some support. He wants to be there. We know that. I think this is a really interesting offer, and I'm honestly not sure either side says no to this one. Odin says the Jets would say no, but yeah, Steven says Jets say no immediately. They're retooling, man. They got to stock the cupboards, and Dubois doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, in all of this? Like, I think if you look at it like that and you take away the human element of it, it's like, yeah, maybe you want a little bit more for Dubois, but also, like, Dubois doesn't want to play in Winnipeg, and you guys got called out by your own coach last season. Like, there's a lot that's going on in Winnipeg that needs to be handled, and just to get some fresh faces in there and some ambitious players who want to become NHL, it's not saying Dubois is kind of done with the NHL by any means, but, like, just fresh energy into the room, and Jordan Harris could bring that. And again, he's played in the NHL in a decent role this past season, so I think he even scored against the Oilers. To be honest, he might have scored 2, so I think it's a good deal.
And I think the Jets would probably want a good young defenseman to add into the mix there because that blue line is getting a little bit old. But maybe if you want a better prospect, what about Philip Mesar? That's a guy who first-round pick last year, didn't have like a stunning year in the OHL. 51 points in 52 games is fine, but like maybe that's a guy who they'd prefer just because he's a prospect. But still, I think this deal makes a lot of sense here for both sides. So there you go. That's the trade machine for our friends at AMA Travel. Find them online, amatravel.ca. Liam, let's wrap up the show with our Betway look around the sports world. Starting in the NHL, do the Panthers close it out tonight? Yes or no?
No. I think Carolina gets 1. It's so hard to sweep, and every game's been 1 goal. Like, this really could be a Carolina 3-0 series. In that game 1, was it Seth Jarvis at the crossbar? It could be a completely different series. So I'll go with Carolina to squeak 1 out tonight, and then Florida close it out in 5.
catch the Jays game last night?
No, I was too busy trying to defeat Was, but I saw the score.
Insane. Hopefully the Jays offense has woken up here. They got Kikuchi on the bump, and you know what that Jays offense going to have to wake up. Shane McClanahan going for the Rays, 7-0, 2.05 ERA on the year, struck out 68 batters in 57 innings. They're facing one of the best pitchers in all of baseball tonight. So hopefully the Jays can go up 2-1 in their little 4-gamer against the Tampa Bay Rays. NBA playoffs tonight. Is it, yeah, Miami. Oh, wait, no, or was last night the game? There's no NBA tonight, right? Tomorrow,
no,
yeah, Thursday,
the sorry
Miami,
Lakers
Boston.
got swept.
Yeah.
Yeah, if LeBron was the real GOAT, he'd be clawing back right now, but whatever, I suppose. Yeah, no NBA tonight, but tomorrow the Celtics win again, head back to Miami, taking it 7, and we're going to the NBA Finals against the Nuggets.
Liam is a Celtics fan. If you are not aware, I'm kind of rooting for Jimmy Butler. I think that's a good story there in Miami that they got going on. And a Miami-Denver final would be very, very spicy in the NBA. Get in on all the action with our friends at Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. Going to be doing a ton of fun stuff with Betway a little bit later in the offseason as well that I am very excited to share in hopefully the next couple of weeks here as well. 2 more shows this week, Liam. Frank Saravalli's confirmed for Friday, by the way. I think Jay might hop on the show Friday as well. Also, we might talk a little NHL draft tomorrow. I'm gonna bug Stephen Ellis. I'm saying it live on the air. I haven't even texted the guy yet, but I'm gonna bug Stephen Ellis to maybe hop on the show and talk draft with us tomorrow, Liam. So yeah, we'll catch up with everybody then. Same time every day, noon Mountain Time, Oilers Nation Everyday, live from the Sports Closet studio. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We hit 13K subscribers on the Oilers Nation YouTube. If you aren't subscribed yet, hit that button. If you haven't liked this video yet, hit that button before you close your browser as well. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll be back tomorrow.